First of all, I want to say it's good to be back with you. It's been a while since we've had these devotions, and I'm grateful that you are sharing with us in this first one in August. What I want to do for the first couple of months is not to look at the lectionary, but rather I've chosen some passages of Scripture that deal with hope that have great meaning to me. So I would like to share some of those texts with you. The first is Matthew 28:20. And I am with you, remember, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Barbara Brown Taylor has said, God, if you're with us, nothing else matters. And if you are not with us, nothing else matters. Those are profound words. There are a lot of things I suspect that matter to you and matter to me. But what Barbara Brown Taylor is saying is that if God is not the one who matters the most to us, then we have missed the heart of life and faith. Barbara Brown Taylor is talking about faith in terms of relationship. In the first chapter of Matthew, when Joseph was asked to name Jesus, the angel said, the first name that you give to him is Emmanuel, God with us. It was a sign that what is really important in our lives is not so much that we know something about God, but rather it is that we know God in a personal way. We desperately need that in the times in which we live. People facing all kinds of problems. And what is needed is the Word. In the midst of the distress, the problems, the challenges, in the midst of all of that, Christ is with you. The church needs that word. The church is changing rapidly. I don't think we can tell what the church will be in 30 years. I hope that we continue to be faithful to Christ, continue to have a relationship with him. But you and I are living in changing times, and the church is changing with it. The world is changing. Things we face in the world, the kind of discourse that we have, even among the leaders of our own nation and other nations, we wonder how in the world are all of these things going to work out. That's why I love these words of Jesus in the final chapter of Matthew. In fact, these are the last words of Jesus in Matthew. You and I tend to pay attention to what are the last words that somebody speaks to us. Jesus gathers on a mountain with his disciples, 11 of them. Judas is no longer with them. And Jesus says, I want to tell you what you are supposed to do. As you go, I want you to make disciples. I want you to baptize. I want you to teach them. And then Jesus gives us those words of profound assurance. And I am with you always. In fact, Jesus says, remember this. Remember that I am with you always. In the midst of things that slap us in the face in our lives, in the midst of difficulties that we have, remember, on the journey of faith, we're talking about a God who relates to us, a God who is with us in our lives. Do you know that really is the foundation of my hope? It is the belief inside of me that whatever I face and whatever you face and whatever people face in their lives, that God is with us. Tom Long delivered the Lyman Beecher Lectures on Preaching at Yale, published in a book called Memory and Hope. Tom Long said both memory and hope are essential to preaching, to proclamation. We call people to remember things. Do you remember? Do you remember when you first encountered the love of Christ? Maybe as a child, you didn't understand, but you went into the waters of baptism, buried with Christ in baptism, raised to newness of life. I doubt that any of us had any idea of what saying yes in that moment meant to all of the other yeses that we would have to say to God. Memory and hope for the not yet. In fact, those two things are not separate. When I look to the future, what do I remember? I remember a God who loves me. I remember a God who gave God's face to us in Jesus Christ. I remember in the things that I face in my own life, the important thing is relationship with God. That's my hope. Mary Daly, you may not know the name. She was a Catholic theologian and philosopher, later disowned the Catholic Church. I was reading some of Mary Daly the other day, and she said, I hate the Bible. I always have. In my imagination, I thought to myself, what if I could sit down with Mary Daly? Realistically, she probably wouldn't even listen to me because I'm a male. But what if I could sit down to her and say, Mary, what is it that you hate about the Bible? When you go to the New Testament, do you hate some of the things that are part of the culture? I don't like those things too, Mary. Slaves, obey your masters. Wives, submit to your husband. Those are cultural things from the first century. Mary, are those the things that you don't like? I don't like them either. But I want to tell you, if you are willing to listen to me, I remember Jesus said that God so loved the world. I remember that Jesus said to people who are weary and heavy laden, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." And I remember that the final words of Jesus, "Remember, I am with you always, always." Mary, if we could have a conversation, that's my hope. I so much wish it could be your hope.